There's a good reason narcissistic abuse victims develop strange hoarding habits. It's not just about collecting stuff, it's a way to cope with the chaos and loss of control caused by constant manipulation and gaslighting. Clinging to objects provides a sense of stability and ownership when everything else feels uncertain. What starts as holding on to comfort can quietly grow into piles of belongings that reflect unspoken pain and trauma. But why does this happen? Let's explore the 10 weird hoarding behaviors of narcissistic abuse victims. Are you ready for number 1? Keeping letters, emails, or text messages, even hateful ones. After years of experiencing gaslighting, you have the urge to hoard pieces of evidence to defend yourself. This evidence is often found in letters, emails, or text messages. It might seem strange to others, but it's your way of validating your emotions, memory, and reality. When someone twists the truth or denies what they said or did, those messages prove that you're not imagining things. Dr. Robin Stern, author of The Gaslight Effect, explains how victims of gaslighting often cling to evidence because it helps them anchor themselves in reality when everything else feels shaky. As painful as they are, these messages might remind you of what you've survived. Let's talk about number 2. Keeping childhood toys as a symbol of lost innocence. One of the effects of narcissistic abuse is losing your sense of self, including your innocence. You'll miss your old self so much. Keeping childhood toys reminds you of who you were before the abuse. Carefree, curious, and full of hope. Dr. Lindsay Gibson, author of Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, explains that these objects can be emotional placeholders. They help you reconnect with parts of yourself that were overshadowed by trauma. When your identity has been chipped away, those toys are a quiet reminder of the person you're working to reclaim or rebuild. Trauma expert Dr. Judith Herman says in Trauma and Recovery that survivors often seek physical reminders of their pre-trauma self to reconnect with who they are. It's not just hoarding, it's an act of reclaiming. Those toys aren't just objects. They're tiny symbols of resilience and the hope that your innocence and joy aren't entirely lost. Let's move on to number 3. Stashing receipts of every purchase. When you've experienced narcissistic abuse, you might have been constantly questioned or accused of spending too much, wasting money, or not being truthful about purchases. Holding on to receipts helps you feel like you have proof, just in case you're ever put on the spot again. Victims often keep meticulous records as a way to ground themselves in reality when their abuser twists the truth. Beyond that, it can also feel like a way to regain control. Narcissistic abuse often leaves you feeling powerless and second-guessing your decisions. Stashing receipts is like saying, "I have the facts, and I'm in control of this part of my life." It's a safety net, a way to build trust in yourself again after someone made you feel like you couldn't. Now, let's continue to number 4. Overstocking household items. Some of us only overstock household items like canned goods, toilet paper, etc. if there is an upcoming storm. However, for narcissistic abuse victims, this behavior is often tied to a deep need for security and control. Overstocking can also stem from the scarcity mindset abuse often creates. Maybe you were guilt-tripped about spending or made to feel bad for your needs. Having an abundance of supplies becomes a way to push back against those old fears. In her book, The Emotionally Abusive Relationship, therapist and author Beverly Engel explained, "When you've been deprived emotionally or physically, you learn to prepare for the worst. It's not just about the stuff. It's about reclaiming your right to meet your needs without shame. So, while others might see it as over the top, you know it's your way of saying, "I've got my back now." You can't miss number 5. Saving old IDs and expired driver's licenses. Since narcissistic abuse can make you lose your sense of self, you may forget who you were before. Holding on to old IDs and expired driver's licenses might be a way for you to remember your past self before the abuse took over your life. When you've been made to question your identity, having something tangible that proves your existence, your independence, and your personal history can feel grounding. Survivors often cling to items that help them reconnect with their authentic selves, especially when their sense of self has been distorted by years of manipulation. So, it's not just a simple hoarding. It's an act of self-preservation and a quiet rebellion against the parts of life that tried to erase you. That little stack of expired IDs proves that you're still standing. Are you still up for number 6, collecting rocks, shells, or natural objects? When we were still kids, most of us had the hobby of collecting rocks, shells, or natural objects, especially at the beach or in the forest. Little did we know, this habit resurfaces in adulthood, especially those who experienced narcissistic abuse. These small, natural items can represent a sense of calm and stability. Nature doesn't judge, criticize, or manipulate. It just is. Holding on to these objects can feel grounding. It's as if you're creating a little sanctuary of peace in a world that's been overwhelming. Beyond that, these collections often symbolize resilience. Rocks and shells are shaped by time, weather, and pressure, just like your experiences have shaped you. Let's keep it moving to number 7. Keeping every thank you card or note received. If you've been keeping every thank you card or note you've ever received, it's not just about being sentimental. It's about holding on to proof that you matter. Narcissistic abuse often makes you doubt your worth because you've been constantly criticized, devalued, or ignored. Those thank you cards become little reminders that people have appreciated you, recognized your kindness, and valued your presence. Each card is like a small, tangible piece of reassurance that you've made a difference, no matter what your abuser tried to make you believe. Keeping these notes helps you hold on to real connections, especially when narcissistic abuse has made you feel isolated. Those cards might remind you of times when someone saw your true self and cared enough to say so. These thank you cards aren't just paper. They're proof that you're worthy of love and appreciation. Here comes number 8. Keeping dried flowers or pressed leaves. Most women tend to keep dried flowers or pressed leaves given by their lovers because of their sentimental value. But for someone who's been through narcissistic abuse, it can hold a much deeper meaning. These preserved pieces of nature often symbolize moments of beauty and peace in a life that may have felt chaotic or overwhelming. When you're in a relationship where your emotions and experiences are constantly invalidated, saving something as delicate as a flower can feel like a quiet act of self-validation. Trauma expert Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, in The Body Keeps the Score, emphasizes the importance of creating rituals or objects that help survivors reconnect with positive emotions and their sense of self. By keeping these fragile yet enduring pieces of nature, you're quietly reclaiming your ability to find beauty and meaning in life, even after experiencing pain and loss. Moving on to number 9. Saving old movie tickets or event stubs. Are you one of those rare sentimental people who keep even the smallest things like movie tickets or event stubs? For narcissistic abuse victims, it's more than just being sentimental. Events like movies or concerts might have been rare escapes or opportunities to enjoy something you loved, unfiltered by someone else's negativity. That movie ticket or concert stub is not just a piece of paper. It's a tangible reminder of a time when you felt alive, seen, and free. These mementos also help you reconnect with your identity, especially when abuse has made you question who you are. By saving these stubs, you're quietly telling yourself, "This is who I was and still am, beyond the pain." It's a small but powerful way to reclaim your story and honor your own experiences. Finally, we're down to number 10. Holding on to apology gifts despite negative memories attached. Narcissists never admit their mistakes and will never say sorry, except when you're about to leave them. They will love bomb you by giving you apology gifts to make you stay. Holding on to apology gifts may represent fleeting moments when the abuser seemed to acknowledge their wrongdoing, even if it was short-lived or insincere. Dr. Ramani Dovasala, a leading expert on narcissistic relationships, explains in her book, "Should I Stay or Should I Go?" that abusers often use such gestures to manipulate and maintain control. It leaves the victim clinging to the hope that things might improve. Keeping these items can feel like holding on to proof that the abuser could be different, even if deep down you know they rarely were. Hoarding behaviors in narcissistic abuse victims may seem odd, but they're deeply tied to survival and a need for control after enduring chaos. Each item often represents comfort, safety, or a memory they're afraid to lose. If you see these habits in yourself or someone else, it's important to approach them with understanding, not judgment. Healing takes time, and letting go of things often starts with releasing the pain attached to them. With patience, it's possible to create a safe, freeing space and move toward a life of peace and clarity.